All right, don't move. All right. Yo, what is up, everybody? It is your host, Trent James, back from the dead on YouTube. I haven't posted a video in, I don't even know how long, like over a year and a half or something like that. I kind of let my channel die with zero explanation. I think I threw out something on Instagram at some point back in 2023, but I don't know. And I don't even know who's going to watch this. I still have the subscribers, but because it's been dead for so long, I don't know. And there's a couple different reasons for this video today. The main one is who I'll introduce here in a second. My guest today, who's going to be telling his story. I promised him a long time ago when I was still very active on YouTube that when he got to a certain point in his criminal case, that we would do a video on it. He's from Mendocino County. He's an ex-firefighter there. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. And I'm not really doing, obviously, I'm not doing these videos at all anymore. I don't even know if I'm going to do one after this. We're going to kind of see how this one goes. I've been out of touch, just a disclaimer, on purpose with a lot of things that have been transpiring in Mendocino County the last year and a half, 2 years, or whatever. I hear stuff here and there still from some of my old sources, and I fucking told you so. Like everything I ever said came to fruition. All the dudes that have been fired, cops that have been arrested, guys that have quit in lieu of termination. There's still internal affairs investigations going on there at various agencies. The city of Ukiah, I'm not going to get into too much detail. They're about to pay out another huge settlement, and which is going to come out soon. And there's just a lot of things that are still going on there that is just par for the course. It's never going to change while these certain people are still in power there. You know what I mean? But yeah, anybody who ever doubted me, it's like it's all come to fruition, like I stated already. So I was going to talk a little bit, about the Cubison thing, the county auditor there, and all that nonsense, and how the DA is going after her, and these articles that the Anderson Valley Advertiser have been writing. Not necessarily that, I mean, they whatever, but for time purposes, because I haven't had my ear to the ground for a while now, we're just going to run this story, a very abridged version today. I'm going to try to keep it under an hour for you guys if anybody cares to watch this, like I said. But we're going to go ahead and get into it. So today I have Doug Stone with me, who is a lifelong Mendocino County resident who now resides out of state. And Doug is a prior firefighter who was a firefighter forever in Mendocino County. And back in 2020, Doug suffered from an extreme case of post-traumatic stress, which stemmed from his years in the firefighter service, but also working the Redwood Valley fires and all that stuff, which we all remember was horribly tragic. I know because I was still a cop in Mendocino County when those were ongoing, and all the just tragic, right? All the deaths and everything that occurred during that time frame. So he had an incident that led to a mental break. And we're going to talk about the criminal case that he got involved in. Some of you that follow that sort of thing might have heard of it because it's the largest gun seizure criminally, I think, in Mendocino County history. All of his guns that were taken from him, some of which have mysteriously disappeared now that he's trying to get him back, now that his case has been dismissed and adjudicated. He was charged initially with 31 felonies, the vast majority of which didn't qualify as crimes. I know because his case is a matter of public record on the Mendocino County website. Also, I've reviewed all the documents, and a lot of these charges should have never been charged to begin with. And the other point to this story, you guys, is to just hit the nail further home on what can happen to you if you get on the wrong side of the good old boys club there in Ukiah or Mendocino County, at the DA's office, at the sheriff's office, some of the PDs, the police departments there, and how bad they can fuck up your life. Even as citizens, you don't need to be in law enforcement or firefighters. Actually, traditionally there, you get hooked up if you're in those positions. But unfortunately for Doug, that wasn't the case. And Doug used to be friends with a lot of these guys, specifically guys that worked at the DA's office in Ukiah as investigators, who have been to his house. We're going to get into that, the things that he gave them and sold to them and these sorts of things. And the reason why his 31 felonies that he was charged with got all dismissed, which is amazing because my time as a cop there, I think at most I've ever charged with somebody was like 7 felonies or 8 felonies or something like that. 31 is unprecedented, right? Then you're just picking at straws, trying to throw on charges just to throw them on. But if you're going to get charged with even 5 or 6 felonies, you're going to at least catch a misdemeanor conviction, even if you pled it down. Like, we're just going to stick you with one charge. More than likely, you're still going to at least catch one of those 5 to 7 felonies. But at the best case scenario for you, you're going to get some sort of conviction out of that. But to have 31 completely disappear, and now all of a sudden he can't get his cash back, electronic devices, laptops, and a lot of his guns, or any of his guns, actually. There's reasons for that. We're going to talk about it. And yeah, so without further ado, Doug Stone, thanks for coming on the channel. And yeah, I appreciate it. We're going to get into your story here.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Trent.
Yeah. So, like I said, I don't want to get too much into the historical stuff based on, for time purposes. But like I said, prior firefighter. So why don't we talk about the incident, including the date of your first arrest in Redwood Valley? I think it was in Mendocino County.
Yeah, so it was 4/24, 2020. I believe the arrest was sometime around 10:30 or 11 p.m. Um, it was sometime around 10 o'clock at night, and the house in question was about 5 miles from mine out a dirt road. I think maybe the 9,000 block of Black Fart Trail. And um, I showed up there and walked around a lot and started prying the sliding glass door of the house. And I worked on that for probably 3 or 4 minutes, gaining access into the house. And as I took a step in the house, a lady was in there and she said, "I'm on the phone with the cops." And I said, "I'm sorry, I'm on a fire." I partially almost closed her door, her slider, and left. Uh, Miles down the road, I would say, like the 5,000 block of Black Bart, I saw a bunch of flashing lights and pulled over. And that's where I have memory of it. The memory of me telling you what happened has come from the lady who I've spoken to quite a bit. I don't remember anything until the lights. They pulled me out at gunpoint and they cuffed me. I told them I had a 45 in my pocket. It was not loaded. And they all looked at me and went, "What the fuck is going on?" Because they had this made no sense to them. I knew half the cops that were there that night. There was four of them. So as they were there, they got another burglary call, which was right near my house. So I had to explain to them directions how to get there. That's how bad I was to my community. So as we were driving to jail that night, we stopped in front of my gate because I asked them to go down and turn my barbecue off because I had a pizza on it. So they went down to my house, two cops, spent over an hour and a half there feeding my dogs, doing dishes, whatever else, but never walking downstairs to see my giant gun collection, which was all lit up and the stereo was on because that's where I was working before I left. I was bailed out for $75,000 that next morning. I had an officer come into the holding cell before I was bailed out and asked me for all my safe combinations at my house, and I told him what they were. I said I have nothing to hide. And I got out of jail, I think about 10:30 that day. Supposedly there was an APB on me. I walked State Street for 4.5 miles to a friend's house. When I got to that friend's house, there was two people there, and through the channels that they spoke, I got a lawyer. And I think like 6:30 that night after they raided my house for 10 hours, I was rearrested again on charges of firearms from what they found at my house. To go a little further, if you want me to where I was finally just locked in jail, I got out for zero bail. Back then it was COVID, so zero bail meant you didn't have to pay anything. They let me out. Uh, when they rearrested me that evening. I spent the night at family. The next day we went up to my house. It was destroyed. Like, I mean, they destroyed it. Like, just, yeah. Um, so we worked around there for a couple hours and we all came to the conclusion that, hey, you need to be alone. You've been through a lot of shit. Like I've never been arrested. The only time I've been in a jail was on calls. And so, yeah, I was beat. And so I was going through some just, weird mental times like Trent was explaining, and I had a recorder in my hand because I couldn't remember anything like I was saying. So and I'm like, what people are telling me I've done in the last 2 days is like, no, how did I do this? Like nothing was adding up for me. So they did leave a recorder. I had that on me. And about 20 or 15, 18 minutes into the recording, I saw lights through my kitchen window. I was at home in the kitchen cutting some stuff up about 9:30 that night. And the lights in the window and obviously freaked the shit out of me. You hear me on the recorder saying, telling the person to go away and get the hell out of here. No one's supposed to be here. And me and that person chatted, and that person left. They couldn't get out of my gate because it's a different combination, so they came back. They spent 40 minutes with me hanging out, talking. You know, we shot the shit. I petted my dog for a little bit, and he left. The next morning, I woke up and my cousin was there and at my house, and we hung out. And about 2:30 or 3 o'clock that day, he called and said, "Hey, your lawyer wants you to go see a psychiatrist." I said, "Perfect. Something's wrong here." So they took me to the lawyer's office in town there, and there's like a basement in their office. So I was down there, and so they assembled the SWAT team around the building and everything. And when I got done chatting with the lawyers and some of my family members for about 20 minutes, they arrested me again. They arrested me for criminal threats, threatening to kill a former police officer, a current police officer, and my current wife. Supposedly, I threatened to kill them the night before. So I was booked into jail on a $275,000 Ramney warrant for 422 PC criminal threats. As soon as I got into jail, they stripped me naked and I was thrown into an isolation cell with no toilet, running water, or anything for at least 6 days. And then I was in solitary for another 35 until I was in general pop, and I spent a total of 2 months in jail. I finally bailed out after 2 months in jail at $535,000 with 31 felonies on me on June, I believe, 23rd of 2024. And I was sent directly to a facility in Berkeley. As part of my probation, they put an ankle monitor on me.
Okay, so um obviously that picture behind you, your wallpaper, is the trophy photograph that Mendocino County Sheriff's Office, that's the agency that pulled you over, that arrested you like 300 times, and they took that trophy photograph after they did a search warrant, or one of the search warrants on your home.
3 warrants.
3 warrants. Yeah, your body like doesn't exist on your background anymore, by the way. I don't know why. But like I can't see your face. But there
Sorry.
we go. Yeah, but they took that photograph, and the vast majority of those guns, man, they look like they're hunting rifles and shit. Obviously, there's some ARs in there, there's some silencers in there. I know that they put together some of those weapons on scene to make them attached, and that obviously becomes a new crime. But the vast majority of those guns, anybody can fucking have, right? As long as they're not a prohibited person. Um, so the thing that got you arrested the first time that night on Black Bart was the fact that you broke into this lady's house, which is technically a burglary, and you said you were on a fire, which is documented. And I think that from the report that I read, she even said that you said that too. So clearly you didn't know where the
Yep.
fuck you were at. You lost your marbles, which happens to the best of us. And so burglary, I think that you had a couple items from her home as well on your person, which led to the burglary element. And but you didn't know what you were doing, right? So you got arrested that night by MCSO. Then you voluntarily gave them the combination to your safe that they asked for, and they went back to your house. Subsequently, found all these guns after they did, saw what was there, because it's cleaner that way to get a warrant at that point, even though they're on viewing it and they had your permission to go back. And then you caught all those gun charges for some of those are quote unquote, in the state of California, illegal firearms. You can't have silencers, which a lot of guys make out of solvent traps and all that shit. We're just going to call them what they are, right? And then, long story short, that added to all these felonies. What I want to talk about is the the criminal threats element. So on this third arrest where you caught this criminal threats, which is 422 of the California Penal Code, when you saw these lights show up at your house, and I'm going to say the name because I don't give a shit. Eric Bartz, who is a disgraced ex law enforcement officer in Mendocino County. Anybody that knows him is going to agree with that. He's one of the guys that was blindly defending ex police chief Noble Weidlich, and Noble has been fired, lost a civil case against his ex fiancee Amanda Carley, which we've covered on here, for beating the shit out of her on multiple occasions in front of her small kids. And he also got fired as a police chief for attempting to or forcing some lady, a victim, I'm not going to say her name, to give him oral sex while he was on duty as police chief. So yeah, I remember Eric blindly defending that guy on a YouTube video that I did. Anyway, so that was the guy that went over to your house. And if memory serves me correctly, you basically told him to get the fuck off your property or something like that, to that effect. How did that conversation go exactly?
Yeah, basically, when I saw the lights, it blinds you, obviously. I couldn't see out. Anybody that knows my house that'll hear this can understand that. And so while in the kitchen, I'm cutting up something, I have a knife in my hand. So I went to the front door. It was nice. The weather was nice, so my front door was open. I yelled at the person. You can hear it on the recorder, go the fuck away, Eric. Like I yelled that many a times and he wouldn't. So he came to the door and I met him at the door. The reports and everything say, and he states that I never threatened him with the knife or anything. And actually, my kitchen knife, I set it down. It was not a big deal. We said some things. He said, like, I'm just bringing your dog back to you. And, but no one was supposed to be there. It's kind of a in-depth story. But anyways, no one was supposed to be there. So it scared the shit out of me just to say that. So it was a weird interaction. He went up, tried to get out, came back. And that's where the interaction even got weirder. It was like he yelled at me like he was a cop, like come out of the house, pull your shirt up, all this shit, right? A-
What?
And
Why?
then
Why would he?
basically
Why
it
would
was
he do
like
that? Why would he yell at you to come out of the
to make
house?
sure I don't have any weapons on me. Well, to
Why do you
make sure,
want
like
you?
when he came back down to the house, I saw lights again and they pull into my driveway. So I went out on the porch to meet whoever this is now. And so as I went out onto the porch there, he's probably 20 or so feet away, 21 in his statement or whatever. That he basically what I saw him do, he was a cop. Like he went back to his cop training, pull your shirt up, let me see you have no weapons, walk like, and I'm like, dude, I'm at my own fucking house, screw you. Like,
Yeah,
and
but I
so
think in the report though, Doug, that I read, it said something to the initially with the knife situation. I know that you had set it down, and again, this is all documented. Anybody can pull it up in the thing, but like in the Mendocino County Superior Court portal. But yeah, I believe that you said something to the effect of not that I'm going to kill you, but like you told Eric Bartz to, because he was on your property, you didn't want him there. I understand he was returning your dog, but then he stayed longer than you wanted him to. And I think you said something, you did say something, not that I was going to, I forgot the verbiage. I should have the report in front of me, but I don't because I'm lazy as shit. But what was it again? You said something that he was able to run with as a criminal threat. And then he brought in your
oh
ex-wife.
yeah, sorry. So I guess sometime during the recording, what happened, and this is my interpretation also, and it is what it says in the report. I said I was going to stab my dog Bella in the head with a knife, right? And so where that came from, and this is years later thinking about all this and going through it, but where that came from is I didn't know what the fuck I was doing and what was going on really at the time. And I didn't want my dog there. For some reason, my family said, no, your dog can't come home right now. And it was a weird thing for me. Everybody knows my dogs are my kids. And so I was more nervous about my dog. That was the statement. And the reports, they tied it to the fact, no, it was right when he said he was going to stab his dog in the head. The problem was is the tape recorder that was playing at the time does not record any threats at all, other than the dog. Um, so, and to say you're physically threatened for your life and to drive away and then drive back to the scene where the threat is and then stay there for 40 fucking minutes, which is documented in the report. Makes absolutely no sense. And then you're scared for your life. I hate to say the next day he sent me a text in the morning, how you doing, buddy? I hope you got some sleep. Well, that was after he set this whole plan in motion.
Yeah, but what did you say specific? Dude, I should have pulled this report up because I read it.
That's what I said
No,
specifically.
no, there was verbiage in there about your ex-wife and her current husband or whatever the hell he is.
There was verbiage of me calling her a name, and I'm not going to repeat it on here. That's
Yeah,
the
but you
only
didn't.
thing.
Yeah,
I
but
never,
yeah, I,
I
I
couldn't have, I could not have referenced them because I didn't even know who the guy was. Like, I didn't even know she had a new, I didn't care. And so there was nothing on that recording about me saying a darn thing about anybody but my dog.
No, not on the recording. I know that, but based on the reports, I'm going off
Okay.
Of Eric's statement, Doug. Okay, so he said, I should have seriously brought this shit up. It's gonna take me a minute to find it, but like what he, because I'd rather just like it gets said because that's what happened. Eric's statement to law enforcement, I believe, said that you told him you were going to kill him or stab him
Yes.
if he didn't get off of your property because you didn't want him there. But then he also brought in your ex-wife somehow into the conversation, and then you said like, yeah, you said like something derogatory against her, but then he also stated in his statement that you said that you were going to do something violent to her and her partner, right? From his
Yeah, kill
perspective.
them. I was going to kill him,
Yeah,
is what it said in the report.
with your knife or whatever. Yeah. So
I,
I know that he called that into law enforcement, the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office, and relayed that information. Basically, hey, I'm at Doug's house right now, which is his property. He told me to get the fuck off of his property, or he was going to stab me. That dude, that sounds reasonable, bro. Like if Eric Bartz was on my property, I can't say that I wouldn't say something similar if I didn't want the guy there. You know what I mean? Especially if he's acting like a weirdo, like making you lift up your shirt and shit. I'd be like, dude, you need to get the fuck out of here. Again, that's all like that's a trespass at that point. You don't want him there. He's there against your wishes. That's 602 of the fucking of the penal code, illegal trespassing, right? So he's committing a crime in your presence, and you're telling him like, dude, you need to get the fuck out of here, otherwise this is going to happen to you, right? Not necessarily. I'm not condoning people saying threatening to stab humans. I'm just saying, even if that's the case, whatever. But at no point in time in the reports that I reviewed did you ever approach him with a knife or any other weapon. Did you ever come within close proximity? Did you attempt to do
no,
anything?
it even says in the reports I never did. He states he never did anything
I
with it.
know.
Like it was kind of like, hey, it was in his hand because he was in the kitchen cutting some things up, which was very evident.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, and so and then I know in the report that I reviewed, which again everybody can review, based on his statement. Yeah, you said that you were going to stab or kill or whatever your ex-wife for some reason, and also her current husband, boyfriend, whatever he is. And I'm going to leave their names completely out of it, but that's what his statement was said. So long story short, that is what is baffling to me. And then yeah, and then he subsequently set you up to get arrested for criminal threats um after the fact. And what's interesting about that is it doesn't qualify.
well, I mean,
None of that qualifies. Even you, if anybody ever read 422 of the California Penal Code, that none of that, especially when you're saying it to him about, let's just say like you tell Eric, hey Eric, he's at your property. If you don't get the fuck off of here out of here, I'm going to stab you. Okay, well, that's not going to qualify by itself. But especially if you're like Eric, I'm also going to go stab Billy, for example. We don't know who Billy is. Billy's made up name. Billy is 5 miles away at Billy's house. Like you don't have the current ability. It's not an imminent threat at that point. But basically, what happened is law enforcement contacted two of these people and said, hey, are you in fear for your life? Like the Doug's going to come over there right now, even though he didn't threaten you. This is all third hand, fucking fourth hand information at that point after it went through the rounds from Eric Bartz that Doug is going to come do this to you. You didn't text anybody. You didn't call anybody. Nothing ever got said to anybody else. And you got picked up for that and charged as probably three separate felonies because you have three victims there. So that's the three tacked on to your 28 that you already had. And it's funny because there was a restraining order that developed out of that on the female half on
well,
your
the other thing, just to clear up with you, the 422 was never charged on me. So they filed it to get me into jail. Once they threw me into jail, they filed an insanity plea, which got me in there. Their idea with this 422, it's documented in all the reports. And I just want to, I'm not defending Eric Bartz, but Eric Bartz was the start of this. There's about 5 cops, very high standing, or what I mean, like, in their rank, that filled out forms that are complete lies and that are completely egregious. Like, I have a kill list, I have other things. And so that was the real problem here. Like, they turned this into something that was
Yeah.
never there. There was never a charge put on me over this. As soon as they put the insanity plea on and got bail to zero, if anybody understands that, there's no bail available if
Mhm.
you get that put on you, they dropped this. It never got to a court.
Okay, well, hold on 1 second. I just want to educate the public, man, because I remember when I was a cop, and even now, people hit me up like, "Hey, this person threatened me," and I'm like, "Okay, what does that mean?" Right? And there's like this huge misconception about what criminal threats actually, when threats actually qualify under 422 of the California Penal Code. But I'll read it verbatim. So it's any person who willfully threatens to commit a crime which will result in death or great bodily injury to another person, which stabbing could do, with the specific intent that that statement made verbally, in writing, or by means of an electronic communication device is to be taken as a threat, even if there is no intent to actually carry it out. Which on its face, this is the important part, which on its face and under the circumstances in which it is made is so unequivocal, unconditional, immediate, and specific as to convey to the person threatened the gravity of purpose and the immediate prospect of the execution of the threat, and thereby causes that person reasonably to be in sustained fear, which is prolonged fear for his or her own safety and their family safety, shall be punished, imprisonment, whatever. Okay, so it doesn't qualify. It is so specific, this code, that a lot of times when I would get these calls when I was a deputy there, or when I worked for Willits PD as a sergeant, 99% of these do not qualify. Or if we were able to make a weak arrest on it, just to CYA, which a lot of the sergeants and lieutenants told us to do, even though a lot of these times arresting people I felt was illegal. But when you get forced to do something by your superiors, otherwise you lose your job, you have to do it. But there was a lot of fights I got into with my supervisor. Sometimes I'm like, hey, these codes don't qualify. This code doesn't qualify for this. Yeah, well, you know what? We better CYA, Trent, because we don't want no liability stuff coming back on the sheriff's office. You hear? And then you have to make the arrest. And that's why your 422 didn't stick in court. You just got arrested for it because they did a quote unquote CYA, cover their ass for this, and it doesn't qualify. None of that qualifies because it's not unequivocal, unconditional, or immediate. For the 2 other people that you quote unquote threatened through Eric Bartz, there is no recording of that. There was no additional witnesses to that. That is a guy, again, a disgraced ex-cop there that shouldn't have even been there to begin with, that is fucking you over. Right. And so quite frankly, you tell him to leave, he should have fucking left. He should have bounced. So I'm not condoning a lot of your actions here by any means, but I'm just saying, if you're going to get arrested for something, at least have it be legit. You know what I mean? And the other thing is, like, that's such a big deal. And your ex was able to get a restraining order against you for 5 years based on this incident, even though the 422 didn't stick in court. And correct me if I'm wrong, there was no physical domestic violence that was documented or charged. There was no
No,
verbal.
I think it was what is it? The TRO, the temporary. There's a
Temporary.
there's a box on there. Has the person ever threatened you? You check yes or no. What do you think the box was checked? No. So basically, the person that got the order said he's never threatened me. So
Mm-hmm.
then obviously I had to get the orders. So it just it made no sense. No, I never have. That's a big thing. Anybody can tell you that I weirdly cherish women, and I don't say that weirdly. I was raised by them. And so, anyways, not to get in another topic, but no, I've never touched a woman. I've never even, no,
Well, and,
it's
and from
wrong.
everything, yeah, from everything I read, you were never even charged with any domestic violence. There was no documentation of threats against her or anybody else aside from Eric's word, which, again, in those circles in Mendocino County, dude, when I was brand new, Eric was no longer a cop in Ukiah, bro. And I had heard about that motherfucker. That's how bad that guy's reputation was. It was horrendous. They're like, Trent, have you heard of Eric Bartz? Because he was going to show up to a function I was at. I was like, no, who's that? And then I had a bunch of dudes tell me all about him. And that was actually the night that a sergeant in the Mendocino County jail committed domestic violence against his wife, who also worked for the sheriff's office. I did an old video on this. And because she, he got away with it, long story short, right? But that was the same night that fool showed up. And that's how bad his reputation was. So to go off of his word alone with no evidence, nothing to corroborate it, which again isn't shown in the reports that he had any evidence of anything, and to make an arrest based on that, pure stupidity. And that's why it didn't even get charged against you. But what I want to talk about is and your domestic violence restraining order, you had it for 4.5 out of the 5 years. You told me it recently got dropped yesterday in court. And what's interesting about that is you were in jail when you got served with what happens is you get served with a temporary restraining order against you. Anybody can get those. It's so fucking easy to do. You don't even need evidence, really. So you got a temporary restraining order put against you on your ex, and then you told me, and then what it looks like is you got served with that, but you also got served with the permanent 5-year restraining order, which prohibits you from having guns, ammunition, these sorts of things. And you got served in jail, which is a legitimate service. However, you did not receive a hearing. Like, you were not able to go to a hearing to defend yourself, right? That's what's going on here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no. So basically what happened, from what I remember, I don't remember being served with the actual order. And there's some stipulation on it, the fact that, I mean, we've looked into it, but the fact of when it was stamped and actually I wasn't in jail the day. Anyways, it's a mute point. It's already been decided. But
But you never had a hearing.
the thing was that I've discovered, yes, the problem was I never had a hearing. And so if you think about it, if I'm in their custody in jail and they don't allow me to go to the hearing, which I have paperwork even from jail I saved that shows I requested to go to the hearing,
Mm-hmm.
that makes me think if I don't go to a hearing, then it must not be going on anymore. Because you got to remember, there was 5 other protective orders people filed during this too. So this was very confusing. And just to let everybody know, if you're involved in a criminal case, your criminal lawyers don't give a flying fuck, and that's no offense to them, about civil stuff. That is why this has gone on for 4.5 years. Because now that it's done, I can kind of work on it. Um, so yes, I was, as far as I know, I was never served with that. I ended up finding out about the order, you know, through ways, and I went after it in court. And yes, yesterday I got it dismissed. I would say, I think it was the end of May of 25 it was supposed to go to. So what, 9 months early, 8 months early, something like that.
Yeah, and what the real thing I want to get, yeah, so long story short, this stemmed off of you lost your mind, you've gone to counseling, therapy, like you've done all this shit for the last, 4+ years, based on, that stem from your service, that at first, it caused you to commit a burglary. And I do know for a fact that you are like really close friends with that lady whose house you broke into, and you have been for quite some time. And she, it's all good, but that's why that started. And then after you got your arrest, then that's when cops went into your house. They knew you had guns. And here's the thing, everybody, that I wanted to really touch on too, as to why Doug caught 31 felonies and they all went bye-bye, which is a result of diversion. But at the same time, if any of these things were that serious, he's going to catch at least, out of 31, based on the percentage, I'm going to say like at least 2 are going to stick, bro. You know what I mean? And to walk away with completely no charges of any kind, especially a very serious, according to Eric Bart's, criminal threats incident that doesn't qualify, again, shows you what kind of cop he was, doesn't even know the damn penal code. Um, this is what I wanted to talk about. And it's like, why did you catch all these charges out of nowhere? These guys knew you had firearms in bulk at your house. They knew you had large quantities of cash at your house. And you were married to, at the time, the daughter of a district attorney's office in Mendocino County investigator. And his name is Butch. And so I want to talk about how all these fools knew about all this shit at your crib that now magically, and now that you're going to court and the DA's office is fucking you around trying to get all your guns and ammo back because now you're no longer a prohibited person because that restraining order has now been lifted. But even then, you were trying to give your guns to an FFL dealer, but now they've been taking you through the ringer, and a lot of these things have magically disappeared. And there's no accounting for a lot of your property. So, what I want to talk about is your history with members of the DA's office and the sheriff's office and what that looks like from a personal level before all this shit happened.
Yeah, I want to say probably 2013. Uh I became friends with my now ex-wife, and we started dating, and then that led me to becoming obviously friends with her father, Butch. And anybody in that town will straight up tell you, you married his daughter for him because we were that close. We were very good friends. We were family. I mean, when I even told him I was divorcing his daughter, he's like, you can drop the in-law out of the son. You're like my son. And so it's actually a hard thing for me to kind of talk about just because I cared for the dude. Like, I had some good times with him and stuff. And so um but basically, yeah, I mean, I got in good with them, and then with the guys in the DA's office. We would camp for weeks out of the year at KOA, and we would all get together, everybody, and then we'd have like yearly parties at my house. I had a really nice house on the no shit. If anybody's listening to this, you know where I lived. Um, and so we would have a party up there. They'd bring steaks. We get all the DA guys together, and of course, I always had a kegerator in my house, which was right next to my gun room. Um, and so, yeah, we would all hang out in there. I would say there was one DA investigator, and I won't say the name, not that it's a bad thing. I like the dude, but he wouldn't go down there just because he knew. He's like, I know this is Doug's gun room. I do not want to be inside that room. Like, he just wouldn't do it. He came down and got a beer, but he would not come in the room with all of us. And so I had my own range that was sanctioned by what was it, Allman? I think it was the guy before Kendall is
Tom
Allman.
Allman. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to meet with him because I had a gun range at my house that was sanctioned because I was within certain parameters, and so he okayed it. And so everybody, they come out and shoot. I mean, I probably had, I would say 50% of the town's or the county's law enforcement at my house at one time or the other shooting guns. Like it just, we did. I mean, everybody in town knew if the zombie apocalypse happens, we're all going to Doug's house. So the stuff you see behind me was very well known. I also went to AR Armor School, bought, sponsored by the DA for a couple days at Yuba College. I attended that with Butch, CJ Denton, and I believe Ochoa. He was from the coast then, so if that adds up. Can't remember. Cool class at Yuba. We learned a lot of stuff about ARs, and it was super funny. They all were like, why does the fireman know more than everybody else? So basically, you have an armor in the county. We obviously know who that was. But off the record, I did it and I was going to do it. That's why there was so many parts, AR parts, Glock parts at my house. I own one Glock. Why would I have 10 sets of parts for Glocks if I wasn't planning on doing something? So the idea was is I was having issues with so I was looking at retiring, and so I was going to do gun work for them. I went to a law enforcement only show. I actually took the brand new engine up there that we got. We got two new engines, and I was held on duty. So we took it to this law enforcement only thing at the gun range, and we were up there shooting suppressed guns. Yes, in California at a gun range, it was basically law enforcement only and the fire guy. And I even have like the invite from Espinosa on Sheriff's Department letterhead, like, please, Doug, come up and so we went up there and we were shooting with the suppressors and stuff. And during that time, there was a few people that we were chatting, and I think people knew I was pretty into firearms, and I also do a lot of machining. So the talk of suppressors came up, and I said, well, those suck. The ones we were using, they're supposed to be the latest and greatest. So there was some talks about me doing that. And so maybe or not, well, hell, FBI already knows that I made three of them. So yes, behind me, there are three actual suppressors that do function. I will happily admit that online. You can maybe pay the $1,000 fee to give them whatever. Um, Whether they're there or not, I don't know. But I was, I did a lot as far as calls and everything. We worked a lot together, you know that. And so anything major, I mean, we hung out all the time on our days off. We would do house projects together. Like, if one of them was doing a floor, I'd go over and help them because I have the construction background. And so I became pretty good friends with them. I mean, even one of the cops, like I said, Denton and Prelim, when my lawyer said, "How do you know Mr. Stone?" We were good friends. And it's like that didn't make anybody go, hmm.
Yeah, but
Um,
but hold on one second. But from my understanding, so you built ARs though,
yes, I have.
and silencers and stuff, and you've given them or sold them to cops in Mendocino County for personal use, correct?
I I will say that I was making some for them. They were never transferred, obviously, because they are still in my possession or in the picture behind me. So there was never an actual transfer yet.
But you had like
There may have been a book where the cash was in the safe that had stuff in it that was I was doing, but let's just again, I don't have it. Maybe it comes back with the stuff released to me soon. I don't know.
well, that's not going to happen. But so
I know.
but my point is like you were making these things and silencers or you had or you were like going to
Yeah.
it was agreed
Yeah.
upon for some of these cops that were there, including guys that worked in the DA's office. In fact,
Yeah.
I have a text message still with you and a DA investigator where you show him I believe it was an AR that you had recently put together with a silencer attached to the end of the barrel. And yeah, that one right there. There we go. Yeah. So yeah, it's right behind him. Yeah. So, and you showed him that picture and he basically you asked him if he wanted it and he laughed about it and said no. So here's the thing, everybody: firefighters in the state of California, or you can't possess fucking silencers, or you or
Unless
California,
you have a letter.
which you didn't, or
No. Oh,
California illegal AR-15s, which is basically every single AR-15 you can't possess. So my whole thing with this whole case isn't to condone anything that you did. It's the fact that the level of hypocrisy that county still continues to fall into with these cops and with these guys at the DA's office and stuff, where they're openly knowing that you have these things at your house all these years and they're going over to your house to shoot guns, to shoot these things, barbecue there, and they know that you have them. Again, I have that text message thread where you show a picture of that one to that DA investigator. He knew about it a long time ago. I think Andrew Porter also knew about a lot of these things, if memory serves me correct, him. And there were some guys at the sheriff's office there because you were well known within that community because you'd been a fire, and that's just how that county is. Cops are friends with
well,
firefighters there and all that.
that my ex-wife also became a police dispatcher. So you got to remember I was part of the city. So I already knew the city cops great. And then once she became a dispatcher, I mean, I was in the brotherhood. I mean, I probably had more of the city cops coming out and shooting guns with me than the sheriffs.
So why do you think that all these guys at the DA's office and law enforcement that you were buddies with magically started cutting search warrants at your crib, knowing full well what you had there, including the money? Why do you think that they turned on you so fast? Why do you think that now you're having such a hard time now that your case has been completely dismissed, never got convicted of anything? It's done, it's over. And why you're having such a hard time getting your property back, which the vast majority of those guns, aside from like a few, you can legally possess. You're not even in California anymore. You're actually in a state where you can have guns too, which is a whole different thing. But why do you think why do you think that they turned on you? Why do you think that you're having such a hard time getting your property back? And why do you think that inventory list is not completely fucking accurate with what was taken? You can't even get your fucking laptop back, bro. And that was like from 4 years
Or
ago.
or my passport. Wouldn't that be nice? They're actually prohibited me from going out of the country for 4.5 years. I believe that's illegal, but whatever.
So in your opinion, these DA office investigators that have gone to your house that full why did they not catch a case for or get fired? I know that Butch magically retired in the middle of your case from the DA's office, which Maybe he just got tired of it there. But why do you think that all these guys just turned on you all of a sudden and are fucking with you on your property? And then why do you think that all of your charges got completely dismissed? We're going to take the diversion out of it because that's a bunch of
Hmm.
bullshit, man. That is way too many felonies to have completely cleared based on
So,
diversion. Why do you think
uh,
these things happen?
you know, I've thought a lot about what happened on the other side of the equal sign is what, I've talked to some people about. And I don't know. I mean, I know that Butch is very well known and high up in law enforcement there and in the justice system, you can say, in that county. Uh, I don't know if he had anything to do with it, honestly. Um, I think what happened is what I see the people that did it, it was all very high up people, like the head of the task force. So it wasn't just this person it was like the head was putting stuff on here. And I think where they got to is I was divorcing who I was divorcing, and that wasn't good. They all knew that I was having issues. I mean, there's been many statements everywhere that Doug was having some mental issues, like going on with his PTSD. It's not like this was a hidden fact from anybody. There's text messages to DA investigators the day before this happened. Like, come on. I don't know what happened. I don't know if they just got to it and went, shit. I mean, what do we do? Charge them with walking into this lady's house? Because the thing is they got a search warrant to go there to look for stolen property. Knowing damn well I didn't have any. They know damn well I wasn't this big burglar they expect me to
Yeah,
be.
yeah, they didn't. I've looked at. They didn't find any stolen property
No.
at your
So they
house.
got there and they
Yeah.
waited until 10 o'clock at night after serving the rest of the 12-hour raid on my house to get another warrant for the guns. And what they said is they walked in and had no clue they were there. They had two officers in my house the night before that I know damn well went down and saw it. The two cops, one of them I know very well. He was in my PTSD group, the sergeant. He knew about my guns before he walked down there. We talked about this. This was so open in town. Basically, what I had was the district attorney's investigator's office saying, anything happens to you, Doug, with any of this, here's my card. That's all I ever got. I mean, I was at qualifying. They shot most of these and so I
Well.
have
Also, Doug, their fingerprints are on a lot of those fucking guns. Is the thing.
very true. And so when you look at it, as far as I don't even want to get into why this happened yet. I mean, there's still much for me to learn, I think, as it ends up to really come down to giving you a true statement from me about that.
Well,
But
well,
I
no,
look
just really quick. Well, it's interesting to me, right? And that's what anybody who's going to be watching this is going to think. It's like, why do these guys know about these guns the whole time? They've shot a lot of them. They knew. Again, we have text message proof that I have myself between you and a DA investigator, like I already said, fully condoning the fact that you could not in California before all this happened. You can't have a fucking AR with a silencer on it, dude. And he was just laughing about it, right? So why is it all good for all of that to happen? And then all of a sudden they go so hard at you when at the end of the day, these are the crimes that you committed, bro. A weak ass fucking burglary where you and the victim of that are friends now. You took a couple little tiny trinkets out of her house, which they found on your person when they first pulled you over. And you had the weakest criminal, quote unquote, criminal threats charge put on you. It wasn't charged, but you got arrested for it, which obviously went nowhere because it wasn't real. But basically, the felonies that you caught, the vast majority of which were weapons related, right?
I
Um,
want to say 50-50 guns. And so the big problem also with it is there's all these burglaries in an area. And so they assigned the 3-month new officer to come up with an idea that all these burglaries happen, so he had to do them. He's the serial burglar of the area. So I was charged, I think, with like 6 different burglaries that and stuff with this. Yeah, so I would say there was probably 15 weapons charges, 15 burglary charges, and then I don't remember something else.
from personal property that they couldn't even link it to you was the thing.
No, exactly. And so what I mean is that the lady's house I walked into, she was burglarized the week before. I had nothing to do with that. Now I've done a huge report for her and us, and we believe it may not have been me. But what I mean is there was a lot of stuff. I had stuff stolen out of my house, out of my package box and everything. I went and got it back. I'll just leave that there. So what I mean is the cops were at my house multiple times during this process that I knew them, and not anything towards me, but I was telling them all this shit that was going on up there. It was becoming a really crappy thing. And they couldn't do anything because of COVID. And that's where it was left. So once they got me, they were like, he did all these. And that's what they did. They just threw the blanket charge out there. And the guns picked up later. The problem with the guns that happened is when after 2 years, we finally had a prelim, which was bifurcated over 2 months, which means for the viewers or the listeners, you have one day of the prelim, you wait 2 months and have another day. It's almost unheard of that you bifurcate a prelim. We did. Again, another weird one in this. During that, we brought into the fact of what Trent is talking about the knowledge of the department and my guns. That was noted. It was noted if the charges persist on this, that we will be involving the attorney general. They did not drop them then, but as soon as we went into a 995, there wasn't a firearm charge left on me. They dropped them all, and you wonder why. Uh, the way they built the firearm that we will see down the road is illegal. So for the judge to drop that charge makes no sense, but they did. And so it makes you wonder. They dropped every gun charge because if they didn't, the attorney general was coming into the case and they knew that.
Well, here's the thing, man. Like, dude, fucking A. Oh my God. Like, I'm just rolling my eyes because burglaries, which again, from the reports, they couldn't link you to any of them except for the one lady. And again, that's like, it's all squashed. Like, none of the other ones were even, they were even evidentiary wise, they were even able to even closely pin on you. That's what I'm saying. This whole case was done so sloppy that all these cops that were involved, it seems like was day one on training for a lot of them that quote unquote put a lot of this together. Cause I've read the reports and I'm just rolling my eyes. I'm like, this is so fucking sad. It's like they were just reaching for straws, like trying to pin shit on you. And that's where that criminal threat bullshit came from when you're standing in there in your yard or whatever at your house with a knife. And then Eric Bartz turns around. Yeah, he threatened two other people. No, there's no evidence of it. Yeah, no, I'm the only one here. Oh, you're going to come arrest him or you're going to arrest him for it? That's all you needed? Okay, cool. Sounds good. Like, dude, give me a fucking break. I would have gotten in so much trouble if I made an arrest like that. And that's what I'm saying. You start to link these things together, but all those weapons charges, I have never once seen there where somebody caught that many weapons charges for California illegal firearms and parts, and at least one of them didn't stick. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is because those guys' fucking fingerprints are on those fucking things. Okay. There's too many involved parties within the district attorney's office there, with the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office, even Ukiah Police Department, that everybody would be getting dragged into that if it were to go further, go to a jury trial. If the attorney
Mm-hmm.
general were to take notice, who quite frankly is also a very corrupt entity that turns a blind eye conveniently to all the egregious felonies that the DA's office and the MCSO has been committing for years now. Right. And it's like, that's why I always tell people this whole time back when I ran this channel often is it, dude, you guys, it doesn't just stop at the county level, man. This is federal and it's way up above. Okay. It goes up and up and up and up. You think it's like to the politicians, anybody that thinks that everyone's like on the level, that they're all doing shit by the book, like you're high. You know what I mean? And so I guess the point is with all this is should you have, gotten in trouble for breaking into somebody's house and all that shit? Yeah, right? I mean, but it is a mental issue, but not maybe in trouble, but because you're proven by a psychiatrist, you have documented post-traumatic stress disorder. And that's what prompted this. And it's already been established. And that's how you got part of the reason how you got diversion. The other part, the most important part in my mind is why it goes along with some of these civil cases that these women that have sued, or guys in some instances, where they sue certain cops at Ukiah Police Department, Willits Police Department, the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office for sexual battery, sexual assault, other felonies, and where the cities will automatically pay out. for the most part, right? There's no jury trial. Every time a jury trial gets threatened on behalf of these women, who I know personally, the cities, they try this bluffing bullshit. Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we'll go to jury trial. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then when it comes down to it, and they see that the victim is serious, they're like, "Oh yeah, no, actually, we were just kidding. How much do you want?" Right? And they're getting paid out obscene amounts of money, including this most recent one, which was done less than a month ago, which I'm not really going to discuss at this point in time, but it just shows you that that's along the same mind, the same lines that I'm thinking. Because if your case had gone further, it would have 100%. There's no way around it based on your phone alone, bro, with these messages to the DAs, investigators, and other cops, and that have been at your house. Their fingerprints are on these guns and silencers and shit. It would have had to drag them into it. So, what's the easiest way? Well, the Mendocino County Courthouse is going to do what it always does and sweep shit under the rug to protect their own. And that's why it's kind of like a mafia organization where a lot of these dudes actually hate each other. Judges hate some of the DA guys, specifically Eister. He doesn't get along
Mm-hmm.
with some of the judges like Brennan and Falder. Historical shit that has gone on there. Why little Matt Kendall, who acts like a 12-year-old girl a lot of the times, goes back and forth with Eister when they're beefing about little girl kid shit. And like everyone's beefing all the time. Sometimes they're cool, sometimes they're not. And it's like, well, but the whole thing is, like I said, it's like a criminal enterprise mafia organization. It's also like politicians, right? Like they're not friends, but to protect the whole, to protect the group, you're going to have to, when it comes down to it, come together as a team against the enemy. And in this case, that was you. Because again, the fact that all these 15 plus gun charges, none of them stuck. Very odd. It's also very odd that you've gone to multiple court proceedings now.
So you asked why
And they
I
haven't given
feel
you your guns back, bro,
you
or any of
you
it.
asked why I feel maybe what you see behind me is not all there anymore. And I feel I do have the answer to that, and I've known this for quite some time. You put 31 felonies on a person, and people that don't understand law, one felony, all that shit behind me, probably never ever going to see it again. Like it doesn't happen,
Yeah.
right? Because you're a prohibited profession. I could have sold it. I'm just saying I probably never would have saw it again. The fact that I had 31 of those on me, and the fact that all the cops in that town that had to deal with me through this time kept looking at me going, dude, when this is over, you know what? Yeah, you're going to build me one. All the guys in jail, hey, dude, I know you're the firearm guy. I mean, I had more people like the bailiffs or not bailiffs, the correctional guards in jail asked me to build them guns when this is over. I'm like, do you ever think I'm getting out of this? So, anyways, instead of going, hey, all this shit's going to get burned up in an incinerator someday, it started disappearing. It disappeared out of my house that day. They knew this guy's never seeing this shit back. But as you see, what's behind me is dwindled to that. It has dwindled 50% of what you see behind me right now. And that's documented in pictures. I,
That's
I, I am legally still fighting it. I do have a hearing coming up that we're supposed to go item by item. They finally itemized some of it after 4.5 years. But just to explain to everybody how, like, you're supposed to itemize a search warrant, anything you take from that house or from wherever you went to on that warrant has to be documented. I don't give a shit if it's a cardboard box that didn't have any tampons in it. If you put it in the car or in your van, you have to write it down. Well, if you look behind me, that was called various ammo as one item. I'm sure everybody can see there's a couple 100,000 plus rounds behind me. So that should tell you right there. It has dwindled in 4.5 years.
well, and also one of the biggest firearm seizures in Mendocino County history. At least that's the biggest case since I was a cop there that I've ever seen in terms of guns. And I've taken a lot of guns before, and that's the by far like way more than I've ever seen before. But to not catch at least one of those is pretty amazing. And it's not like you had some baller ass attorney. You've been representing yourself through,
I
especially.
I I had a great attorney. I've been through three. I had a shithole one at start. I had a really shithole one for 2 years.
Yeah,
The
but
one
none
I
that's going to get you out of 31 felonies, man. You know what I
No,
mean?
that my last attorney, I mean, because I like the guy. He did a great job. He did. He basically, to explain to everybody, diversion should have been filed like from day one in this case because of my past. It was very documented. Everybody in town knew it. I was a 25-year fireman that suffered from a lot of what I did. I'm not saying that's a valid excuse or whatever, but that should have been done in the beginning. And so when my other one came in, they do what's called motions in courts. If you don't file a motion with the judge, you can't even talk about something. My lawyer filed probably 10 motions that brought all that we're talking about out today in court. It was just never looked at because you can't really go against the system when the system is going against you. So with 31 felonies, we had to take care of that first. Now that those have been dismissed, yeah, it's been what, 3 months now? Now, yes, I am representing myself at trying to get all the property you see behind me back. Main reason for it, I shouldn't need a lawyer to do this, is what everybody tells me. And I've been to what, 6 hearings now, and I still have not seen any of my property after almost 5 years.
And I've never heard of somebody having to jump through this many hoops with an adjudicated case, meaning it's completely dismissed, just in order to get property back. At the bare minimum, like your laptop and electronic devices, your passport, that should
Yeah.
be automatically given back to you. And again, you're right. There's a property receipt that should have been attached, document, and everything that was taken. This shouldn't be up in question where you have to go into court multiple times. And I understand some of the technical aspects of this, where there was a DA, person in the DA's office, a deputy district attorney that was assigned to this case initially. She had an inventory list. She magically quit due to the corruption there. Let's just call it what it is. And she got tired of the bullshit, and it was kicked off to somebody else. And they try to act like they had no knowledge of it when it's very knowledgeable case. Everybody there knows about this case, man. And to hear that made me laugh. And I'm like, so there's basically things missing, and they're trying to stall and delay it. And it's like, so shit got stolen, shit got taken. I want to see how much cash you get back, if any. And it's like, how do we prove that? But what's funny is some of these cops don't exist anymore. Like Luis Espinoza, who was a sergeant in the detective unit at the time. And fortunately for everybody in the community, he no longer works at the sheriff's office. And he, ironically enough, went out on PTSD leave long ago. And he was always a huge proponent of making fun of guys. I heard it myself, multiple witnesses to this, for going out on stress leave. And yet he's never coming back. And that came at an interesting time as well during this, and some other guys that are no longer around. They recently, the sheriff's office there has lost so many guys, man. It goes, it always does that historically. It goes in waves. They get fired. There's a few guys out right now for some pretty serious sexual allegations, one of which is a sergeant who is out because there's been at least 7 women at the sheriff's office that were either deputies, worked in the jail, dispatchers, or a civilian capacity over the years that have been sexually harassed by this guy. I've personally seen it. I've also yet to have been contacted as a witness. That's interesting. And the guy assigned to it is a lieutenant at the Santa Rosa Police Department. I wonder, there's definitely going to be no friendships there, right? We'll see how this goes. But initially, this guy, this sergeant, got taken off of patrol when this investigation started and stuck into the marijuana unit, which comes with a 5% pay increase. So you had 7 women coming after him for sexual harassment, which is well documented. So they promote him initially, and then finally, a long time later, they stick him on administrative leave, which is a paid vacation. But my point is, if you're in their cool little club, Doug, you get to do whatever the fuck you want. And then it's only when you rock that boat, whether it was because of your divorce or something else that transpired, they will come after your ass, and you're going to have the biggest uphill battle of your fucking life. Because I always tell people too that have come at me with these cases when I stopped doing YouTube, you can't win against the man. The man's going to win. Okay. Especially in a small, very corrupt county like that. And back in the day when I started this channel, man, like, I know we're kind of diverting here, but like, I just want to say this, like, because I've just been watching this shit unfold the last year and a half, and in my brain, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. When I had people questioning me, and then it's look at the county auditor situation. Look at all these guys that have been fired or arrested as cops, and Derek Hendry, mild lieutenant, still under investigation by the FBI, and the ex-police chief Fabian Lizarraga at Willits PD got fired as well, forced to resign. Said it a long time ago. No one believed me that these guys were doing these things. So to do it to you internally, it's like there's no shock here, right? There's no shock value for any of this. And it's
No,
like,
the big thing is they kept it so hush hush. There's really nothing about it. If it wasn't for the AVA and the my friend now sending them information on this, it would have disappeared. I mean, there's people in town that write things a couple years ago like, well, just be like him and you can just go to Arizona and live the rest of your life. And I'm like, I'm still battling this case, people.
well,
So it was kept very hush hush in that town. Like nobody really knows about it. I mean, maybe some of the people that have listened to you maybe had some questions about it, but like I say, like we say, one of the biggest felony cases in that county, it's unheard of. No one knows.
well, that's because you're right, they did. The only people that have heard about it that I've ever talked to, law enforcement, and that's it.
Hmm.
Right. And a lot of these bigger cases don't get disclosed to the public for obvious reasons. You know what I mean? They want to keep it in house as much as they can, which I'm hoping with this video at least gets out there. People are going to have their opinions, right? They always
Yeah.
do when I do YouTube. It's fucking funny because they're going to be like, half are going to be like, oh man, Doug's a criminal. He should go to prison for 800 years. And the other half's going to be like, oh damn, another bunch of corrupt bullshit. And he's the only reason he's getting off on any of these charges is because it's also linked to a lot of these cops, right? That have fingerprints on these guns, that are condoning illegal firearms and parts that you're not even allowed to have, and that they actually can't have either. They can't buy silencers from you, bro,
No.
or order them, or possess them, or put them together themselves, unless it's department issued, which is cleared through, the DOJ. It's federally legit, and that has to go through a certain process. You can't just be buying shit from a neighbor, basically, is
No.
what that is, or a friend. And so, um, it's just very interesting the fact that they just still do whatever they want. But um, what's going to be cool though is that you can sue the shit out of everybody civilly once you get your property back, which is going to be fucking hilarious. And I'm going to be in the front seat, and you can subpoena everybody, including guys at the DA's office that used to go to your house, guys that shot your guns, the guy in that text message condoning that California illegal AR with a silencer attached, and Eric Bartz. Hey, Eric, why don't you regurgitate 422 of the California Penal Code, man? I know you can't. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is a criminal threat? Why did you do this, Eric? Who told you to do it? Why did you get Doug illegally arrested for a crime that doesn't actually exist on paper? You know what I mean? Why didn't you leave his fucking house when he told you to fuck off instead of calling the cops? You know what I mean? Like, it's just weird. So you can subpoena everybody. You're going to win the civil case 100%, because you already had something happen that shows a very high success rate of a civil case. You got all your charges dismissed, right? You're not a prohibited person from anything. And so when that happens, they hope you're just going to go away. You're going to go away to out of state. You're going to stay there. Let's just do Doug this solid. No, well, guess what? You're all going to catch a civil case. And that's what I've seen historically in Mendocino County. These people that come back and win. Everybody listening, always sue. Always try to sue. If you were done some injustice in that county, whether it be by law enforcement, court proceedings, whatever, consultations with attorneys are free for the most part. Call around. Okay. I've done it myself. So is Doug. Call around, talk to people. You never know. You might have an attorney, because that county is losing its power. Like I said, a lot of guys have left. Matt Kendall, even though he's in his 50s, looks like he's 85. I saw a picture of him recently. Holy hell. And internally, his organs are screaming in agony. So these dudes, same with Eister, right? So these guys are going to fade out. Okay. And a lot of these dudes, like I said, the higher up ones have been fired. They've had to move on. It's not the 90s anymore. They've lost a lot of their power and authority, and now they're just beefing and squabbling with each other. They're very weak. That's why the AVA, the Anderson Valley Advertiser, you've been sending me clips, Doug, these little clips from their articles, just lighten up the DA's office and MCSO, um, and all those sorts of things. You know what I mean? It's they're just tearing themselves apart now. They're weak, and that's why these civil cases now are getting settled out, and that's why you're going to win yours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I do owe a lot of my defense to the DA's office because they're the ones that taught me if anything ever happens to you in this county, read the reports because every cop here can't write one. And you know what? That was the first thing I did after 2 weeks of being in solitary was give me the reports. As soon as I read them on my 15th day in jail, I knew something was not right here.
Yeah,
And so what I can tell everybody out there, anybody that may be dealing with this in that county, I feel for you, but you got to fight your own battle and you're going to become an expert in your own case if you want to do something with it. Like you have to,
yeah.
because no one's going to do it for you.
No, no, and don't count on anybody there getting your back, man. Like
Yeah.
nobody. The sheriff doesn't give a shit. None of the police chiefs give a shit. DA's office damn sure doesn't give a shit. I've seen them prosecute the fuck out of people based on personal biases. I've heard it. Okay. And again, none of this should come as surprise. We all know it happens. A lot of other people, this was exclusive to Covelo too for a long time, bro. Like the DA would heard who got arrested in Covelo?
Mm-hmm.
You don't say. You know what I mean? I saw him put a dude in prison for 9 years with no criminal history because he was personal friends with the with the victim's family. I also just wrote up a what do you call it? Starts with an A. Why can I not think right now? Um,
Affidavit? I
yes, I
don't
wrote
know.
up an
Oh,
affidavit for that family recently because I was present for this arrest and it was done procedurally incorrect, and a lot of things got said and done that shouldn't have. So we'll see what happens if that guy actually gets released from prison or not. But I just want to touch on one last thing here. And then we're going to continue to see, what happens with your case. But I know this was a very abridged, shortened version, again, for sake of time, even though we still ran kind of long. Um, but I want to talk about the AVA for a second, the Anderson Valley Advertiser. I don't know, you sent it to me, um, where they were talking about an ex deputy with the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office, Jason Cox, who, rest in peace, died not that long ago, who I knew personally. Not only did I work with him, but I had several phone conversations with this guy, especially in 2023, um, when I was living in Texas. And what was their gripe with the AVA? What did they write about him?
that I think it was his family or something, or maybe friends. They wrote none of the sheriff office or high law enforcement people came to the funeral for the service. There was like one person on duty that came and one guy that was like off duty, and there was no other sheriff's department personnel there. And they found that very kind of distasteful.
Yeah, so everybody listening, Jason Cox, I don't know what year he got hired at the sheriff's office in Ukiah, but he early 2000s for sure. And he left in like 2016 to Lake County as a DA investigator there. He's also the guy that if you Google Jason Cox lawsuit in Ukiah, you're going to find that back in 2007, he sued to get his job back because Shannon Barney and the sheriff's office had conspired against him to illegally fire him because of all the swinger stuff that was going on in Covelo. And those guys were like the cops there. Some of them were ripping people off like growers, especially Shannon Barney, um, who was personally guarding a grow for a very well-known individual in Covelo. But Jason won his job back. It was sealed by Judge Nadell in the best interest of the sheriff's office and the community. Bullshit. More like it was sealed so that the community wouldn't know the full ins and outs of everything that the sheriff's office was doing, the dirty laundry, right? Anyway, unfortunately, Jason Cox died not that long ago. Young, like 40s, right? Great cop. And he knew a lot. He knew a lot of secrets. He knew a lot of these guys' skeletons that he was prohibited from talking about because he had to sign a non-disclosure agreement upon the settlement of that case back in 2009 or 10, I think is when it finally settled. Maybe before that. And the interesting thing about Jason though is in late 2023, and I told a bunch of people this when he would call me, or a few. He called me back then just to shoot the shit. But the last time I talked to him, I think it was like, maybe it was earlier this year, bro. He told me on the phone that he felt horrible because he wanted so desperately to talk about what he knew. He wanted to give me information that I could provide to the public. And I said, Jason, I don't do YouTube anymore, man. But if you want to tell me something about that stuff from back in the day, these cops extorting marijuana growers, possibly homicide, um, drunk on duty, the wife swap stuff, but like in a lot more detail and a lot more felonies that were covered up back then. Because Tom Allman was the lieutenant of that sector, the old sheriff. Matt Kendall was the sergeant. Okay.
My neighbor.
Yeah, your neighbor. So he wanted to tell me things, and he was on the phone very upset at the time. And he called me about this more than once. This was just the last time I talked to him. And he wanted to disclose a lot of it to me. But he consistently told me, he's like, it's going to help out everybody in that community. He's like, Trent, but if I talk, they're going to come after my wife and my family. And he's like, I don't care about myself. He's like, but they're going to come after him. And I'm like, Jason, they're they're pansies, bro. I said, nobody's coming after anybody. Okay. This isn't the 90s and the 80s and the 70s. They have no power. They're scared. They're not going to do nothing. Look at me. I talked a whole mess of shit and nothing's going to happen. Right. I ran for sheriff and all that. Nothing ever happened when I was walking around that whole county. Right. So, but he just maintained that. He's like, I can't because of my family. And he also alluded to the fact that he was still involved in some sort of federal case that he wasn't allowed to talk about, involving some shit from old shit. And but he called me about that. I want to say three times, about three
Hmm.
times, telling it was very, very weird and elusive. Never getting into too much detail about it, but because he just said I still can't talk about some of that stuff because I was sworn whatever, but I'm afraid for my family. And unfortunately, he died recently from because he alcohol abuse and it caused medical related issues. Good dude. The fact that nobody went to his funeral from the sheriff's office, I'm not surprised because he had a lot of dirt on a lot of those guys, but he was also against the grain type of dude. He he didn't like the command staff. He didn't like Kendall and those guys. I mean, you know what I mean? Even though they did talk, it's so weird though, because some of these guys, they actually talk, they communicate like they're friends, but behind closed doors, they don't like each other. It's the weirdest shit ever. And yeah, but he knew a lot of things more than anybody else that I've ever talked to before because he's been around forever. He was in the heart of it, you know. But I do want to say that because they wrote that article, and that's not surprising to me. But I'm going to tell everybody he had something to say, and unfortunately, unless he probably documented it somewhere because he was very intelligent. He liked to CYA, as did Derek Hendry. And Derek told me before that he had CDs, recordings, documents to safeguard his ass against a lot of these higher up people in the county. And that's why Derek Hendry had to get reported to the FBI by ex-police chief Fabian Lizaragua directly because Fabian saw that the DA's office, Eister, was not charging Derek for these righteous sexual assault cases after Derek's home got raided by law enforcement, search warrants done, and all that stuff. Um, he's protected, as are a lot of people. So Fabian's like, damn, nothing's getting done. Let me call the FBI. And then that's why he's under current investigation. But it's like, that's what it takes. You got to go to it, even though the FBI there is corrupt as shit. But um, you have to reach out to outside entities sometimes. And sometimes they tell you no, right? But it's like, there's so many things that these guys have against each other that prevents them from talking and coming forward. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens with your case going and what comes back on your property, what they took. Like, did some of these guns get taken that they knew they had shot? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I know right now I can for surely say after multiple inventories and a current inventory that there is at least one firearm, serialized firearm missing. There's multiple uppers that are going to be missing, multiple ammunition. There's some cameras, couple ice chests, which is kind of the big item. I know everybody's going to laugh, but when you have a 50 and a 35 quart Pelican ice chest, that holds a lot of stuff. That would explain why so much stuff was missing. So, and it's very documented. You know, the thing to let everybody know, you might think I'm full of shit or he's making this up. The problem that occurred in this case, there was two distinct problems that caused this. There was over 3,500 pictures taken on the raids of my house. That's very good at documenting that what you see behind me. I have 3,000 pictures with all that behind me as they were doing stuff in my house. The other problem you have in this is they never investigated the case. So as we spoke before, I was known by the district attorney's investigation office. So that would have been a conflict of interest. Well, Trent can tell you very well what happens is they get a conflict there. They send it to Sonoma or Humboldt, usually Sonoma. That was never done. So I don't know who has ever looked at all this other than me and a few other people that I know, including probably you, all these pictures, but they probably should. Like if they were smart, they would look at the stuff because it's very documented in this. I I don't want to come out here and say, I got this shit and they did wrong and try to bamboozle you. I have hardcore evidence. Like I'm good with that. I've done a good job through this documenting it and it's coming to fruition. I find it horrible that the cops that they're sworn to serve us, which I was a sworn person at one time, to do this is just horrible. I mean, I'm glad they've lost their immunity because I hope they all have to give up their retirement for what they did.
Yeah, and my whole thing has always been like, dude, you can't arrest somebody for shit that you do. If you're gonna be shooting illegal guns at your house, you can't be involved in those cases. You know what I mean? So anyway, yeah, we'll see what happens. But let's go ahead and cut it off here. It's been a while.
Sounds good to
Fucking
me.
yeah. See who watches this.
Yeah.
Everybody who or anybody who is gonna watch this shit, just because it's been so long, my channel's just been sitting there. I don't know if I'll do another video in the future. I might just fuck off again for a couple of years or whatever. Who knows? But I have heard things here and there, and I've seen some stuff. I've just kind of kept it to myself. Um, but it seems like it just doesn't. Nothing has changed there. It's not going to. It's just the same damn thing. The best case scenario is you hope that these guys get old enough just to finally leave because no recall is ever going to happen for them, and maybe you guys can get somebody else in there. But it's so hard, man. You got to fire everybody. But anyway, that's all she wrote. And maybe I'll see you guys in another one, maybe not, or whatever. And Doug, thanks for
I'll
coming
drag
on.
him back on here for you guys. We'll get you some more info out there.
It's kind of fun, man. I
It
kind of
is.
it got to be too much for a while because I was getting so much information all the time from people at the DA's office, guys at the sheriff's office who I still hear shit from, and gals, every department there actually. And it was getting so much, and I was so inundated with information all the time, probation, um, that I just couldn't hear it anymore. And I had to come out. I live in LA now, which is no secret, and I had to do something else with my life at the time. But every once in a while, these are kind of fun. I do still enjoy letting people know what's going on there, like the actual reality of these things, even though they know for the most part. There are some other cases I can talk about, that I wouldn't mind because they're so just fucked up. And I think that the only way they ever get out is guys like me that would provide it to you guys because I don't care. So yeah, we'll see. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if not, then that's cool too. Whatever. But see ya.
Thanks, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving.